human mind believes in what it wants to believe and not what it should believe. Be dispassionate when you are to judge yourself. Be passionate when you are to carry forward your mission. Leave passionate subjectivity. Embrace dispassionate objectivity. Why does one fail? There is a passion among humans to execute their results. In doing so, often people become a judge in their own cause and tend to embrace what is comfortable to their passions, and by the same measure tend to ignore what is uncomfortable to their passions. So generally, what happens in the consequence is that you tend to overestimate yourself and underestimate others. It is this faltering in the requisite analysis that failure often visits a person. While estimating yourself, you keep judging yourself. However, judging yourself is a prohibition under the fundamental systems of reasoning. Best is to understand things through an example. So let's evaluate a burning example, the current war on Ukraine. Russia decided to invade Ukraine. Given the vast differences in the magnitude of military power and the size of the two nations, it was estimated that Ukraine would be captured by Russia in few days. Ukraine's defeat appeared certain to everyone, but not to Ukrainians. Ukraine perhaps knew that one relevant point which Russia did not factor in, and it was that the history of the tough life of the Ukrainians. Ukraine's history is one of hardships created by the politics among nations. First, it was taken over by the Soviet Union after the First World War, sometime in the year 1919. Thereafter, when Ukraine resisted the diktat of the communist nation for collective farming and nationalization of farms, terribly annoyed with that, the brutal Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin inflicted an artificial famine in the year 1932 to 1933, now famously known as Holodomor, that is, killed by starvation. About 5 million people died of starvation as a massive persecution of farmers was mercilessly inflicted. The situation became so grim that the country was driven to cannibalism. While the famine hardened the Ukrainians, they got further hardened when the Ukrainians faced a dangerous dilemma. When Hitler launched an extremely bloody attack on the Soviet Russia in the year 1941, the mandate of Hitler was to kill most of the people of the Soviet Union, as the aim was for Lebensraum, that is, to get more living space for the Germans. However, faced with the torture inflicted by the Soviet dictator Stalin and those who survived the massacre of the Germans, they switched over sides from Stalin to Hitler. The World War II ended in the year 1945. Hitler lost and Stalin won. So it was the time for the revenge of Stalin on the Ukrainians. Millions of Ukrainians were sent to the labor camps of freezing Siberia, notoriously known as the gulags. Yet the Ukrainians survived for their nation. So, when Russian President Putin decided to attack Ukraine, all he saw was his military might, but he did not reckon the fact that Ukrainians were people who had got hardened by the tumultuous history. In short, Putin did not consider the fact that the Russian army comprised soldiers who did not want to die, and they were to face the Ukrainian army whose hardened soldiers wanted to die. And that is how the story goes on. The mighty Russia could not inflict any decisive defeat on the relatively small Ukraine. As I had said earlier, what is true for nations is also true for individuals. After all, it is the individuals who take decision for the nations. The lesson is that never overestimate yourself and never underestimate your opponents. I have seen so many people failing miserably in life because they were unable to assess the power of their competitors or opponents, and on the face of that had put themselves as being formidable when actually they were not so. So, overcome that dangerous passion. Human mind believes in what it wants to believe and not what it should believe. And the only way you can do it is to follow the dictum. Be dispassionate when you are to judge yourself. Be passionate when you are to carry forward your mission. So, my dear friends, leave passionate subjectivity. Embrace dispassionate objectivity.